You remember the Sega Saturn? Oh, excuse me, the Samsung Saturn. It was Samsung's arguably most obscure console, releasing in Japan. Wait a second. Samsung Saturn. What the is this? Okay, hold on. Everybody knows that Samsung didn't make the Saturn. The company that made the Saturn is Hitachi. And it goes in your car and, has a GPS and two microphone ports and a screen that pops up, and it costs 3 times as much as it's supposed to. And it was made by Victor. And it has a VR headset. Remember the VR headset? Listen, folks, I'm a Sega fangirl. I like Super Tempo. I like The Tower for the Game Boy Advance. I like Sega Gaga, the Japan-exclusive turn-based RPG where you fight this guy. This guy. I like the Christmas Seaman message disc. I like the Christmas Seaman present disc. And to be honest, the Saturn is so way past cool that it makes my head hurt. And my head really hurts. There is just so much weirdness with this console. Its variations, its peripherals, its games, and just the bizarre history of the thing. So today, let's take a look at the launch of Samsung's freaky little CD-based console from the mid-90s. I mean, Sega's freaky little console. Now you got me saying it. Okay, first of all, what is going on with all these variations? Hitachi and Victor and that? Well, essentially, Sega licensed the Saturn out to its partnered hardware developers during its day to, I guess, meet demand? It may seem hard to believe now, but the Saturn was, for a moment, pretty popular, selling 200,000 units at launch. There were very few games on day one. Adventurous Ball and Giddy Labyrinth, anyone? How about Wanchai Connection? Or Myst. Remember Myst? The original Myst type game? I did a whole video about it. You don't remember? Yeah, me neither. There's really only one game that mattered here. Virtua Fighter. Yay, Virtua Fighter, woohoo! Listen, this was a big deal in 1994, okay? It had graphics. It had Jeffrey McWild. No E, just Jeffrey. That's fine, I think. By the way, canonically, Jeffrey has only ever lost one fight. It was against an 8-meter-long sea beast called the Satan Shark. Despite being Australian, Jeffrey is a master of the forgotten ancient Greek art of pankration, a particularly bloody wrestling/boxing combination. This was real. The Greek philosopher Xenophanes once referred to the sport as that new and terrible contest. You didn't think we'd get to Greek philosophy this episode, did you? It is for this reason, and many others, that I consider you to be a fool. Now, back in the day, when dusty old bitches like me were wandering the earth, there was this thing called E3. It was a video game expo where guys in suits would go up on stage and embarrass themselves in an elevated form of humiliation kink. Sometimes they would announce video games, too. Anyway, in a bizarre marketing stunt, when talking about the release of the Saturn, the guy from Sega announced that the Saturn had already been shipped to retailers and would be available immediately after the presentation. This, understandably, didn't give retailers any time to, market the new system. It worked for Beyonce. It did not work for Sega. On top of the sudden launch, there was another problem. Sega had shipped the Saturn early to 4 retail chains, all of which, by coincidence, no longer exist. Babbage's, Electronics Boutique, Toys R Us, and Software Etc. Good lord, what a time capsule. But because they chose not to ship early to places like Best Buy and Walmart, it hurt their relationship with those companies. KB Toys, another forgotten retailer who was big at the time, was so offended at not getting an initial Saturn shipment on day one that they refused to carry the Saturn or any Saturn games for the entirety of the company's lifespan. This is my heated rivalry. And oh, there was yet another problem, of course. Right after Sega's E3 1995 presentation, in which they announced the surprise launch and the console's price of $400, was Sony's. In one of the slickest gotchas in tech history, Steve Race from Sony came up to the stage and uttered a single word.
$299.
absolutely brutal. Remember when tech companies competed for who could drive their prices down the most? That was awesome. They got my ass running on 256 megabytes of RAM now. All the Hierophants could afford was a Pentium 2 for my vocabularial matrix. Well, at least in the US and Europe, we got some better launch games. Thank God, we got Pebble Beach Golf Links. What would we have ever done without Pebble Beach Golf Links? Anyway, now that we've covered the launch of the Saturn, why don't you tune in next week for a look at some of the console's unhinged peripherals and features? There's an obscure video format involved. Until next time, stay Sega, and remember, if your game doesn't use a banana-shaped joystick, why the hell are you even making it?